Yeah, yeah. Making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights. You start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers, Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers, and Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers, and Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape for every one of us. I was kinda late, cause I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the fate, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy.
Queen PR Krista B, those wrestling girls, TWG. Black excellence, making it effortless. Podcast bringing up women and wrestling. Let's go.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl, Stephanie Hardy. And welcome to part 2 of the Black History Month collaboration series, where, of course, I'm starting something new by talking to various people in Black wrestling media, aka my compatriots, my friends, my brothers and sisters in the wrestling media fight. And we get together and talk about, the evolution of Black wrestling in all of its different forms. And tonight, of course, I'm Stephanie, but of course, I am so happy to be here with two lovely women who I've had the honor and privilege of watching grow and then also watching them continue to do more and more in the media space, in and out of wrestling as well. And they are basically like pioneers to me in terms of what it's like for Black women to be in this podcasting space when it comes to wrestling. So, without further ado, welcome Queen PR and Krista B of Those Wrestling Girls. How are you guys?
Hi.
Oh, so good. Hi. Thank you for that intro.
Absolutely.
And for having that stuff.
Thank you, Steph. Hey, Brian.
Of course. Oh, Brian H. Waters in the comments. Hey. Thanks for watching. But yeah, like, of course, like you guys are worth all of the intros, all of the things. And I'm so happy that we finally get to do this together. I feel like we have been scheduling and not scheduling and stuff not working out for years. So I'm so happy that we've finally gotten together and this is happening now. So I want to ask you guys before we start our conversation, like, how is it that you two, came together and, decided that this is what you guys wanted to do in starting Those Wrestling Girls?
You want to take it?
I was going to ask you the same thing. So we both worked in media and we ended up working for actually with my sister. And we were on a blogger panel, I think, and someone brought up wrestling and our faces like lit up and she was, oh my God, I think we were like missing Raw or something. And we were like, oh my God, you like wrestling? So then we worked together another time. And that's when the women's evolution was happening. And anytime me and Krista got together for work related things, all we would talk about was wrestling. And Krista was like, yo, we should have a blog or a podcast or something. I was like, word, right? And, then you want to take it from there, Krista? Because I feel like
we did our first demo of how we would be received. This is when IGTV first came out. Like we were the test dummies for IGTV. And I was talking to P. I was like, yo, we gotta come up with a name. And I was like, oh, we should do those wrestling girls. And P hated the name.
I really hated it.
Like, no, let me
keep brainstorming.
Let me think on it. So I'm like, whatever. So we did the demo video, and I wrote Those Wrestling Girls across the video. And everyone was just like the feedback that we received was really, really good. So we just like, all right, stay tuned. Those Wrestling Girls. So P was like, okay, you're right. And I also told her, I was just like, it's so easy to keep our names in the conversation. Whether it's good or bad, somebody will be like, oh my God, it's Krista B, Queen PR, Those Wrestling Girls, in the good way or in the bad way. But our name is still being mentioned. And now almost 5 years later, here we are like, oh my God, it's Those Wrestling Girls. So that's exactly how, we came about. And then fast forward to Evolution, because P and I kept brainstorming throughout this whole experience before we got to Evolution. Before
over planning, and was like, how are we gonna do this?
Yeah, so before they announced Evolution, we was like planning and looking up stuff, and I had just started working at my job at Hot, and we had okay to record this there we needed to, and it was a lot going on. So then once they announced Evolution, she definitely just said if if her Wi-Fi acts up, she'll log in on her phone. So we're just gonna keep talking for the viewers who are here. So when it came down to Evolution, P was like, "No, we gotta go."
Yeah, once it was in New York, it was like God was like, no, like you guys need to cover this, and like it was exactly what we were standing for. So it was perfect, and that was our first episode. We recorded like I think the day
after,
and we were exhausted, and even that was an experience that I was just recently telling people how we recorded it the first time, and for whatever reason it didn't record, then the second time, and then we actually had to record it a third time.
Yeah, we recorded it 3 times in 3 different spaces in brick.
Oh yeah, and if you look at that episode, we are exhausted. Just from you into show stuff, you know that come down from one of those magical wrestling nights. So we were just like, oh my God. But I love it now looking back. And I'm like that, and like, look how far we've come.
Yeah, like that's a pretty cool origin story. It's like you both start off working in the same profession, and then, by happenstance, a conversation happens, and then you realize you both love a thing. And then even though, you try to make time for it, and even in the midst of all your tiredness, with all the passion that you have from what you just experienced, you guys came together and put together a show. And even though, it might not have been as perfect as you thought it should be, you still turned it into an amazing thing. And that's perfectly fine. Because, I mean, my show, Lord Hammers, wasn't even on video. Like, y'all had IGTV. I didn't even know how to do any of that. So I was just doing audio. But at least, you all had each other to sort of push each other through. And now here you guys are. Like, those wrestling girls is that show. Like, right now.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And Steph, I don't know if you remember, you were like kind of one of our very first guests on I don't know if we was recording an episode or we was doing something within those wrestling girls entity, but you were one of our very first episodes. This is when I was doing a lot of episodes of stuff from my car. RIP to Juju, that was my first car. And you were one of our first episodes. So I just want to say thank you for taking a chance on us and wanting to be featured on our episodes. And now look, we all here on yours, and I just want to give you your flowers right now because Steph, you were killing it out here. Okay.
You are. And you're such a great viewer as well.
Yes, like you were literally going places like UK and Comic-Con and everything. So please keep going. If not for us, then do it for yourself. But you are killing it. You are amazing. And I just had to give you your flowers while we're on your show.
Thank you guys so much. Like, that really means the world because, y'all gonna make me cry. And it's too early. Like, it's just 9 minutes in. Y'all gonna make me cry. Like, y'all can't do this to me now. But yeah, like, it's crazy to watch the evolution of people and when they start things. And then just last week, it was, my 3-year anniversary of doing the show. So it's
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
It's a blessing, really. And I'm just so glad to even be in this space. But it's because of women like you and seeing y'all, whether it was on Twitter or whether it was, listening to y'all or watching y'all videos, that I felt like, I could do it. Like, okay, these girls are just like me. They're working, they're doing whatever they can, but they love wrestling too. So if they can do it, I can do it. So that's all that really matters, is like seeing y'all made me want to do it, and seeing other women made me want to do it. And I'm just so glad that y'all have, embraced me as a part of the sisterhood and helped me to keep going in whatever ways I can. Even though it gets tiring sometimes, I never get tired of it because
super tiring. We love it too, but it's times where we're just like, yo, we got to take a break, because if you don't take any breaks in between, like I think our first year we were experiencing burnout. And P didn't want to admit that we was experiencing burnout because she was
I don't
on
experience
go.
Burnout. I just gotta take a break.
Sure. She just wanted to keep going. Like she was letting, and this is for anybody who's wants to see their progress grow. Like P was looking at numbers, looking at all the metrics of those wrestling girls, while I'm just like, all right, I'm over here thinking of cute social media designs and how to, whatever. And it was at a point to where I'm just like, we were literally just like, yeah, it's not seeming fun anymore. It's not seeming like, even watching wrestling, it feels like a job instead of us actually watching it and having an actual conversation. So it was
what's interesting too about wrestling is also if you're not into the product at the moment.
Yeah.
So then you don't have that inspiration either. So then it's like, okay, like I'm not even into wrestling really right now. Like, of course I'm going to watch every week, but it comes in waves. So then you're also fighting that. And then we have such a niche topic where it's like the women don't get a lot of time as it is. And then there's times where they get like no time. And then it's just like, you're just defeated and you're just like, why are we doing this? And then wrestling Twitter can be a fucking monster as well. So, and sometimes it could be really negative. So there's like so many moving parts. Like I was talking to one of my dearest friends and I was like, yo, recording is the easiest part.
It is.
It is. It's the work that comes with marketing a brand and all that. That's where like the work comes in. And then really life in. So it's like a stir of things.
Life. It does.
What I like about working with Krista B is like we're very different in good and bad ways. To where like me being a Capricorn, like I'm just gonna keep working. Like even if I'm in a bad state or something, I'm gonna keep working. Like the pandemic pushed me more. Like my grandmother passed that year and I was just like but Krista is so different than me, where she was like, no, like you have to take a break, like you have to like slow down and just because again, if it's not fun, it's like, why are we even doing this?
Right. Yeah, like she goes in work mode. Like my aunt passed that year as well, so and I think they were really close in passing. So when my aunt passed and it was just so many other things going, I was like, hey, I need to step back for a little bit. And Pete's like, okay, I'll take over. She let me go through my grief in that moment. And then she was just like, all right, so are you going to post on stories like this week? And I'm like, girl, we need to take a break. I'm still in this, and I feel like once she started to understand like the social media side of it and things like that, and knowing what a break was, especially because we was in a house, like we was locked down, we was shut down. Right. So working in media, being in a house, it's like I still had to work in media. I still had to do whatever I needed to do, and on top of that, go through whatever I was going through personally. On top of that, trying to still maintain those wrestling girls, because at this point we're already 3 years in, trying to so it was hard. Like I had to choose one thing to step away from, even if it was for a little bit, to get myself together, while P is running around like road runner, like we do this, do that. And I love that about her, because she kept us afloat when I was just like, I need to take a step back. And that's why our differences, I feel like our differences definitely balance us out more so than our likes. Because if we were both alike, we would not be sitting here talking right now. Tell you that right now.
And like, sorry, go ahead, Steph.
Yeah, I get that. Sometimes it's like like Queen PR, I'm a workaholic as well. Like, even when stuff might be going wrong, like it takes me or it takes somebody else, telling me to just slow down before I actually do slow down. Because I always feel like, if I don't slow down, then everything will fall apart or people won't remember it that much anymore. Like, there have been times where I've been scared to take a break because I'm afraid people might forget that my show is even a thing. Like literally, like there's just so many different thoughts that run through your head when you're running something like this, but you do have to take that time to take a break, because that's when all of the creativity kind of does come back, right when you're resting, and then you're realizing, and then while you're resting, you're getting inspiration for what you're gonna do.
100%.
That's true. Like that's how I feel like that's how all right, Brian, you can't use that. That I wasn't even trying to call her a road runner, but I was just trying to make an example of how fast and impulsive kept bringing us. So Brian, don't you dare use that. But as I was saying, like that's how my sound offs came about. That's how P's fan club came about. At the time it was Words with PR. The watch parties. That's how all of that came up within the breaks because we just didn't want to keep recording, and then when it comes down to going on years, we will have nothing else to really talk about.
Right.
So we had to break it up, and we had to be like, okay, well, we could do this. Like, if it wasn't for P, I would have never really been invested. I mean, I was watching, but I would have never have been invested into rewatching Total Divas if it wasn't for P and her fan club. If it wasn't for P, we would have never met the ladies of Face Beat Hills High, and we would have never been as close with Christina as we are now. If it wasn't for P, like he was doing the networking and stuff, like
and then just like just like going back to just like balancing each other out is we wouldn't be in a lot of spaces if it wasn't for Krista B, and just one, like, her being who she is and just being so dynamic where it's just like she's going to be invited into spaces, or she gonna fucking build her own space and then they're going to have to make room for it type shit. And we like literally every time, like that's how it's always been. And I was like, I could never be that person. Like I literally just follow Krista. She gets us some sort of badge that says some shit, and then literally go places, and like even being in like those press rooms and being like one of very, very few. I could count the amount of women, and I can count the amount of people of color. And Black women is even smaller than that. So, and it's like, because of Krista B, we were in that space. And because, going to Survivor Series and her asking her, not even hesitating to ask a question, motivated me this time because she's not going to be there. And I was like, you know what? And I'm the type where I'm actually really shy. So I'll raise my hand. Oh, 100%. So I'll raise my hand, and if you take too long to call on me, and I start thinking about it too much, I'm gonna slowly be like, So when Krista B wasn't there, it was like, no, you like, and like good thing I had Brian there with me, and both of them make you feel like you can like take over the world. So I was just like, so being just that compliment, and then like also growing as a person. And you have mentioned family, and I can't help you said watch party. I'm trying not to get emotional, but Cammie, who I found out passed away, used to come to watch parties, and she became a really close friend of a lot of people in an online space. And during the pandemic, being able to get together with them every week, and just like what we would literally just like, it started out with the book club for the Bella Twins. So like just building a community around wrestling has been amazing. And then these watch parties, and then getting together with them to watch wrestling. And then you like build these like friendships like unexpectedly. It's like, even if you've never met, and it's like, wow. And then to see now, like how many people, we got a DM the other day of an older Black woman who was like, thank you, I found your page, like you made it okay to like love wrestling. And and then that's when you get reminded, like, this, it seems so small, like you're behind your camera, you're behind your screen, and you're just tweeting things out, or you're you know what I mean. It can feel very isolating, and you don't think you're reaching people, you don't think you're touching people, and then sadly you find out someone passed away, and then you see the response to it, and you're just like we mean things to people, like these like people on Twitter are fucking human beings. And it's like, I've never met Cammie, but she was a dear friend, and I miss her, like I'm like, oh my god, I can hear her laugh, like I can hear her tweets, and it's just like, that's someone that I got connected to through wrestling. And it's, I don't know how I got on this topic, but I just think it's important to be mindful that, like Stephanie, no one will ever forget you. Like you're taking up space, a very much, needed space, and you're phenomenal at it. So please take a break, because we will be here because we care more about you as a person and the quality of the work that you do, because you're really amazing at it. So like I workaholic to workaholic, like it's okay to take a break, because I've watched you. I've been at conventions with you. I've heard you ring announcers. I've heard you on commentary. Like you put 1,000% into everything that you do. So it's okay to step back a little bit and do that. And then that's what the sisterhood is for, like, and I have to remember that. And that's why I want to like emphasize it, because when something like, Cammie's passing, it really hits you and it puts a lot into perspective.
True.
Especially when you're not in real life with people.
Yeah, when I saw you guys post about Cammie, like that broke my heart because she was a early follower of me and the podcast as well, and some of the things she would say and support and everything would be funny, and I couldn't believe that that was what happened. And all I can hope for in this space is that she's reached love and peace on the other side, and that she knows what type of light that she was to other people, and just finding out how she did impact others in terms of academia and other things that she had done, like that blessed me. And I just hope that she knew that she was loved while she was here. And I do want to send prayers and good light to her family and her friends and her colleagues who are missing her right now, and also to us who are missing her, because she was a vital part of the Black wrestling community online, and she is loved and appreciated. So I just want to say that on this space, because I know I hadn't said anything about it yet, but I felt this is the perfect place to say that. Like, that really shook me a bit to find that out, but in the end, I just hope that on the other side of wherever she is, she has love and peace and healing.
Absolutely.
And
We love
yeah.
you, girl.
Yes, definitely. But to switch gears a little bit, just the idea of seeing you guys in those press conferences bless my soul. And seeing other women like that I work with, even on Women's Wrestling Talk, because even at the last one, there at Royal Rumble, there was Ella J and there was Emily May, who I work with on Women's Wrestling Talk. I was so excited to see them, but then to rewind back to November to see y'all, like, I enjoy watching the press conferences anyway, but to see y'all in there, I was just like, yes! Like, I was just screaming. And then my boyfriend was like, what is that? I was like, nah, that's Patricia. That's Patricia. It's Krista. I know them. They're there. And he was just like, oh, okay. And that was it. Like, I was just crunk as F. Like, y'all don't understand. Like, I was just so excited.
Oh,
Like, it's almost like watching when you know somebody, like, and you're screaming for the person at their graduation or at their prom or something, you're just like, yes, and you're just seeing them do a thing. And that's just kind of what it feels like to see women like y'all in that space, because it's like y'all say, most of the time it is mostly men in that space,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And so to see y'all in it, and then to see Black women in that space too, it means the world to me, and all women of color in that space as well, because of course I'll never forget NYC Demon Diva, even though I haven't met with her or worked with her yet. Like, seeing her get called upon at that other press conference that I can't remember right now. There's so many. I was so excited. I was just like, oh my God, that's so great. So seeing more of y'all sort of trickle in, and then the fact that I know y'all and actually, have hugged y'all and spoke with y'all and stuff like that, I was just like, yes, look at them go. So so I just had to say that. Like, I thought that was the coolest thing in the
Thank
world.
you.
Couldn't
Thank you.
couldn't stop yelling.
It came as a shock, to be honest, because the day before we were supposed to leave, I had got a text message saying, "Oh, okay, when the show's over, stay in your seats because you're gonna come to the press conference."
Oh
And
wow.
I was like, "What?" So I sent it to P, and P was like, "Girl, what?" So then, because we had planned to drive out to Boston that day and to
Mhm.
drive back, but being that we had the press conference, we had to stay because I wasn't driving by myself, and P falls
Right.
asleep. So driving by myself. He falls asleep. And then we get there, and there's only 4 women, 3 of us of
Mhm.
color, 2 of us are Black, which were P and I. And P was like, I didn't hesitate to ask a question to Bianca, but I just knew that I had to. Like,
Right.
to Bianca and Becky, like, I knew that I had to, and I knew that I had to make Bianca see me. Like, and afterwards, she was just like, "Why you ain't tell me you was gonna be here?" And I'm like, "Girl, I didn't know you was gonna be here. Like, I didn't know who existed.
It
Like,
was like we didn't know what to expect at all.
at
So that was
all."
the thing. Like, we literally like was like, okay, this is it. It's like so quiet. It's such a because it's also like I am not around a lot of wrestlers, so you have like you just watch this pay-per-view where they're like live and like big,
like feet away from you.
You know what I mean? They're like lively, you know, that superhero type of thing. And then now you're in like this small, quiet room, and then they just come in, and then everyone, you know, it's almost just like, do you clap?
It was like, do you clap? Right?
No, it's such an interesting experience.
Right.
If it wasn't for Sami Zayn to break that ice with us, we probably would have been.
Everybody was just like,
I don't get a round of
He
applause.
would be the one to break the ice. He would.
It was good. It was
silly.
something that was needed because I've never been in a press conference like that.
Right.
All the other press conferences just like that I've been in or been a part of, I'm so used to hearing like the shutters of the cameras or the flash or somebody else talking because it's already so big. Mm-hmm. Or when they do introduce, you know when to clap for a person. So when it comes into a wrestling press conference, it's just like, what do you clap? Do you throw a chair? Do you put somebody to a table? Like, what do you do in a wrestling press conference? But then when they was allowing us to ask questions and Bianca and Becky came out, because they, like I said, they tell you who's going to be in a press conference when you're sitting in the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So it's not like I could have had the question prepared or anything. Yeah. So I'm looking at P and I'm just like, hey, look at my hand. Like my hand was shaking.
I've never seen Krista nervous ever in my life.
And I'm like, the first time, why am I nervous?
And I was like, it's in my theory was just because this is a completely new experience for us. Like we've never been in this position before, and it was you know what got me though is because like, oh hey, what's up? Like that like she was like, oh I know her vibes, and I just like made us feel so at ease automatically. And then Krista asked such a good question about, you know, more history, that because both of those women, Bianca and Becky, have made their history and what more history they wanted to make. So it was like such a good question. It was just like it was so perfect for just the brand and for that familiarity that you have with Bianca, which I think helped. Because I imagine if like I just came off this like, you know, grueling ass match and I got to sit in front of press, and then it's like, oh, I see a familiar face. Is my first question is like a familiar face. Yeah. So I'm like, I'm sure that made the whole, you know, situation so much better.
Right. And same for you with Rhea. Like it may not be no familiarity there, but you know, you took it and you honed it. And I'm proud of you. And I told you the other day, like I'm proud of you because that's not something that you would normally do.
Right.
And I'm like, if I was there, I would have forced you to get it because it wasn't going to be me again. It was not going to be me again. I promise you that. So I'm just so happy that you was able to step outside of your comfort zone, take up the space, cheap plug, take up the space that you were in and be seen not only for those wrestling girls, but for yourself. Like you put that boost of confidence within yourself and be like, I'm going to ask this question to Rhea. And like that question was amazing.
It was.
I had a serious question, and then somebody took it like similar to the one that Krista asked, and I was just, well, they didn't take it. It was something very similar. So then Brian was like, ask something fun, and I was like, I wonder how you gonna celebrate, because also I would love to celebrate with Rhea. So I was like, oh, like, you know, how you gonna celebrate? And the fact that she like smiled and laughed. Can I just say how charming and magnetic Rhea Ripley is? She is like, she has that it factor where you're just like so drawn to her.
Yeah.
Like she goes so far, and then she's so young. But
I feel like she's had it from jump though. Even when she was when I first saw her in the Mae Young Classic, like she was magnetic even then when she was, you know, had the long blonde hair and she had just the regular gear on, you know, like she was magnetic to me even then. And then when she turned it up and it was actually, you know, being her full self with the dark stuff and the gossip, I was like, oh, it just kind of drew you in even more. So I totally get it. And I'm glad that you had that moment and actually broke out of, you know, your shyness in order to ask that question. Because, you know, that's how you guys work as a tag team. Krista is going to come through with her strength, but then sometimes, you know, she's going to be like, look, it's your turn. And when it was your turn, you did it. And I'm just so proud of both of y'all. I was just so happy.
Thank you so much.
I was so happy. Like, you don't understand. I'm loud. So I was
you
just
were
like,
one of the first people to tweet.
I just couldn't do.
Like you were one of the first people to tweet, and I was like, you know what? Let me put my phone on Do Not Disturb because I already know if whoever is watching this, our Twitter mentions and stuff is gonna blow up. I kid you not. As soon as I said that with my phone on D&D, I happened to scroll up, to see and if there's any notifications on the phone, and it was yours. I said, "P, Stephanie, the first one." Like Stephanie saw it. Stephanie saw it,
Yes.
and then Brian jumped in when you was like, "Is that Queen PR or Krista B? I don't know which one I saw." Brian was like, "Both.
Mhm.
They're both there." And I'm like, "Thanks, Brian."
Mm-hmm. That's what I
Yo,
am. That I was glad. I'm glad that I was the first one you saw. That's so crazy. Like I thought maybe it would have been more people, or like not even just more people, but just people before me who would have said something. But look, I was excited. I was like, look, like Twitter finger. But I was so excited, and I just well, and while we're talking about black women in wrestling, I guess the first question I should ask you guys is what more do you want to see in terms of black women in media in wrestling? Because we do talk about the athletes a whole lot, but I want us to talk about our space and where we are in media in wrestling. So starting with Krista, what do you want to see happen with black women in wrestling media?
Taking up white spaces,
Mm-hmm.
um, and actually being recognized and being treated as equal, because it's cool. Like I work at a big media company or whatever, and I write about wrestling every now and again. When it comes down to black women, black girl magic, and this, that, and the third. But there's not enough of us. There's not enough of us writing for us. There's not enough of us speaking for us and speaking to us. There's not enough of us, making a stance and making a mark in this wrestling media community. Like it we may seem so big to us because we all know each other. We have women's wrestling talk. We have the Hardy podcast, those wrestling girls. We have Jabba Tears with Janelle from HR, a part of that. We have so many women in wrestling media who we think is so big, but then we gotta realize like we're big in our own bubbles, and we're
Right.
all taking up the same. We're not the same, but we're all taking up space within that bubble. And when we're on the inside looking out, we just see it's a bigger bubble around us. So I want us to start taking up those spaces. Start being ahead of those meetings. Start being those managers that you call. Start being those PR people that you call. Start being all of those. Like I always, or every time I get a chance to always, hit up Tavia, just tell her, hey, thank you for this. Like I saw her when I was at Monday Night Raw last night, and just seeing her just commanding her space, and she just walks up and down the where the ring is at. Like she'll just walk up and down and scope and take pictures and photos or whatever. I love the fact that she is in that space. We all know that WWE, when it first started, it was white. It's a white dominated male space. So the fact that she is one of the few black women there, and the fact that she's still there and she's taking up her space and commanding that space, that's what I want for all black women to do. Be able to take up these spaces, command these spaces. Hell, even start their own wrestling promotions. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have to be all women within those wrestling promotions, but start their own wrestling promotions and let it be as big as WWE, as AEW, as HOG, as ROH, as Impact. Like let it be as big as those and bigger. That's what I want to see for us black women.
Yeah, that's a fantastic answer. What about you, Queen PR?
yeah, everything Krista said to 1,000th degree. I all want it to feel like more normal. Like I don't want to always be like, oh my God, there's only like 2 black women in this, press box. Like I want it to be the norm that there's a lot of us, and I want our voices to be authoritative voices in the space, and not just like, oh, I'm, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'm glad black women are talking about wrestling, but then there's also that air of, we're not treated on the same level as like a woke culture or something like that, because I want us to not only build our own things, but for it to feel the same as like a Bleacher Report, the same as all, everything. And I also just, I want to, yeah, basically everything Krista said. Like there's so much more out there that we could be doing, and I want to see, black women in wrestling media do it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with all of that. All of that really, because it's just like in terms of black women owning a promotion, like there are a couple, who have done it or have tried, and tried to make a really good try of it. But honestly, I do want to see more of that as well as all of us in the mainstream process of writing stories that are authentic, as well as, you know, being on commentary and on, you know, pre-shows as well. Like I want a lot more of that, but you know, and also maybe even our own, you know, network. I was
True.
talking to I was talking to Kyle about that last night on the Black Wrestling episode. Go back and watch that if you haven't. It's just like there's just so much more that I want for us, you know, and it could be so big, you know, if it's, you know, allowed to grow, or if we have to create our own space that's dominant, then so be it. So I'm really excited for y'all, and I'm excited for those answers, because there's only we're doing the work. So as long as
Absolutely.
we're doing the work, then the fruit will happen. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe in that. So as we move out of the media space, of course, we're here to talk about Black women in wrestling and the evolution, you know, of us as characters and our personas and where we are now, and just to figure all that out. So, and to just talk about how we honestly feel about our evolution since then, because it is Black History Month, and this is the time where we focus on that. So, starting with Queen PR, I want to ask you both, who was the first Black woman that you saw in wrestling, and how did she resonate with you?
Mm. Probably Jacqueline. Hi, Mr. Black.
Hey, happy
Hey,
Valentine's
Mr.
Day.
Black.
You. Yeah, probably Jacqueline. And like I rooted for her because she was Black. Like it was exciting. Um, like the women at the time were doing like wild things. So you know, like so it was basically it was like, you know, one of those things. Like I wish I knew like who Jacqueline was at the time to really respect her more than I did, because not saying I didn't respect her, but like, you know how we looked at women in the Attitude Era. So I would say Jacqueline.
Okay, that's a pretty strong start there. You know, she was, I believe she was the first Black woman to win the women's championship at that point. And then
Mm-hmm.
she also won the cruiserweight title as well. So she was a groundbreaker in that space.
Mhm.
During a time in which it wasn't really like seen that way or portrayed that way, that was, you know, prioritized. She was still, you know, a strong athlete, and we send her love. So Krista, who was your first one?
The same. It was Jacqueline.
Okay.
And like, well, we grew up in the Attitude Era, so we're kind of going to always have the same answers because that's what we had
Yeah.
at that time. But yeah, it was definitely Jacqueline. And because she was Black, like she looked like me, I looked like her. She was the representation. She was the only representation for a really long time until Jazz came along.
Right.
Um, and yeah, like P said, like, and during the Attitude Era, the only person, I feel like the only woman we really grew to respect because of how commentary was and how things were positioned for her was China.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
She was the girl running with the guys, and I resonated with China as well because I was a tomboy, or I always hung out with the guys. Like I always hung out with the boys. We played wrestling, action figures, and stuff. So when it came down to Jacqueline, it was like, okay, you know, she's with Mark Marrow, or now she's doing this or she's doing that, but they didn't position her in a way to have her shine so that, you know, we can be like, oh, I want to be a wrestler because of Jacqueline. Now
Right.
there are people who are wrestlers because of her, but we don't know that story. We didn't
Right.
know that story. I didn't know that story until the Dudley Boys inducted her into the Hall of Fame.
Right.
The narrative was for us to like Trish and Lita.
Yeah.
And, like that was who we were supposed to root for. So you kind of, it was like, oh, Jacqueline is Black, but like, you know, she was never the one that like, you know. So it was one of those things where it's like, oh my gosh, she looks like us, yeah, but like she's never gonna get the spotlight that she really
Right.
deserves.
It was like an out of sight, out of mind thing. Like if you ain't see her, you wouldn't know that she's missing. But if you didn't see China, or if you didn't see Trish and Lita, then it's like, what happened? What's going on? Where are they at? Are they injured? Are they, you know? And it was like that
Mm-hmm.
for a really, really long time. And then I guess I want to say the next wrestler that I actually saw and was just like, oh, she's going places was definitely Naomi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, they were, yeah, she was a part of the Funky Dactyls at one point, and you know, she was with, what was his name, Tyrus, whomever. Um, and but she had this athleticism. She had this charisma about her in the ring. She was very pretty. Still is very pretty, and you know, she just went there with like, if she had to take this, she had to take this. She could wrestle, and that was like the first time I seen a black woman who could wrestle. Like, yeah, there Alicia Fox was there too, but Alicia Fox was also positioned to be crazy in WWE,
Yeah.
and you know, it was just like, what is happening? It's not something I want to see on my TV screen. I'm coming back to wrestling, so to see someone like Naomi, literally like captivate me and like, you know, reel me in, and her actually doing moonsaults and you know her finishing move. What was it? The rear end and all of that. It was just
Yeah,
like
the review, yeah.
review. Yeah, it was just like, wow, like do I want to try wrestling now? Like I'm like 20 something.
I used to
want to try
when I
wrestling
got
now?
back into wrestling, like if Naomi was around when I was a kid, like who knows what I would have been inspired
Probably.
to do, because she looks like us, she sounds like us, she dances like us, like she does. Like I see myself in Naomi, and there was never a wrestler where I saw myself in her, and then I fell in love with Naomi on Total Divas before anything, because I was just like, she's so relatable, she's so this, she feels like us, and then that's when you start to root for her, and like it's such a difference compared to like back in the day.
It's just like, woo, what were we thinking? And then you see this person like The Rock, or you see Stone Cold, or you see Triple H, and you're like, oh, forgot the time we were in. Got it.
Yeah, it was already hard because during that time, at the Attitude Era, it's like women weren't as prioritized, but then it's almost like, of course, like it is in society. If you're a black woman, you're even less prioritized because of that. And it's just like we're always sort of like the ones who get everything secondhand or third hand or fourth hand or fifth hand, depending on the situation.
Like we get the scraps.
Yeah, we get the scraps, and that's kind of what it felt like back then. Because even when putting together, what I was thinking about for this conversation, it was always sporadic when it came to black women, during my lifetime. And then, of course, if you even go backwards and you think about the Sweet Georgia Browns and the Ethel Johnsons and the Babs, like all the women back then, it's you have that group of women, and then you move forward, and then like a bunch of years, maybe 20 or 30 years after that, and then you have Sapphire, who's with Dusty Rhodes, and then you fast forward like maybe 10 more years, or a few more years, and then you have Jacqueline, and then you have Jazz, and then you go a little bit further, and then you even have people that a lot of people may or may not even remember, like Crystal, who once upon a time during the Ruthless Aggression era married, Teddy Long, and then they fought. She fought a little bit, but she came through the Divas search or whatever, and she fought a little bit, but not a whole lot. And then you also have Shaniqua, which was already problematic.
Was with
the Basham Brothers.
The Basham Brothers, and it was at that point too. Like as I was rewatching it, because Peacock done messed up my whole
same.
Like when I was watching it, and I'm just like, why are they calling this black woman Shaniqua? That was like the first thing. I'm just like, yo. But at the same time, this is the ruthless aggression era. And it was just like, I guess it was still acceptable because people weren't as aware, or in terms of other people, sensitive as they are now. But looking back at it, I'm like, yo, that's definitely a stereotype, because not every black girl or woman is named Shaniqua, has a ghetto name. Not every black woman is undereducated, because I know a lot of educated black women who don't have the name Shaniqua.
Educated black women.
Who have degrees and are literally killing it out here. So for that stereotype, you can just tell, like, there had to be like a running joke in the creators room.
So bad. And then as a black performer, you kind of just you have this attitude, and it's a wrestling thing where you kind of take what you're given, and it's like, okay, well, if I have TV time, like I'm gonna give my all to it, and it's just like, oh no, like why, this is so problematic, like this is so bad for the stereotypes. But then I do want to also shout out Charmel, because Queen Charmel, she didn't have like a stereotype character, and she was treated like regal, and she was in storylines, and that was I love the King Booker storyline. but I hate the stereotypes. Like, and I think that's why we love Bianca, because she feels so authentic. You know, like she's a black woman who's like being herself. She's not like playing a black woman, a strong black woman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she is that, and her mannerisms are hers, and you know, like we relate to it, and but because it feels real.
Yeah, and what I will say to the Charmel conversation, she was the first woman I saw, when I started watching wrestling, because I started with WCW,
Mhm.
because my daddy was watching both of them back to back, because that was the Monday Night War time. And so when I saw Charmel, she was a Nitro girl, and she would come on and dance and stuff, and that was all I wanted to do, because that was my dream. Like, I wanted to be a Nitro girl.
Oh,
Because I would dance in front of the TV and everything. Like, sadly, there's no footage of it, but either way, my parents know it happened. But that
That
was my
matters.
dream, and she was, up there dancing, and I thought, they were cool just because of that. But it's just when you think of the stereotypes component of it, me and Mimi from Black Wrestling was talking about this yesterday, and how she felt even a way about Mercedes Monet when she was Sasha Banks, and she had the boss gimmick at first, because she felt like maybe that could have been a little bit stereotypical, in the sense of, you're this girl who may not have necessarily been into the whole rap persona thing, but then you're sort of being this. But then I also told her, it's something that she also created and took from a piece of her life, because of the fact that she's attached to Snoop Dogg, and they used to call him the boss whenever she was around him, and that whole bloodline, because you got Brandy, you got all those people in her bloodline, because Lord Jesus, that's so crazy to me.
Snoop related to
But
everybody. At the end of the day, me and Snoop related. Okay. Hey, Uncle
you my
Snoop.
yeah,
cousin. You my cousin.
Right. At this
yeah.
point, hey, Uncle Snoop.
Yeah, so it's just like, so, and then the idea that all these women and even men too, we had to make that work in a stereotypical way, because of course, if you don't do it, you don't keep your job. But it's so sad, because some of these, characters were out here being very stereotypical and very problematic, in a sense, and very hurtful. Um and even with Shaniqua, like, I feel like as a child, I had no reason to see a character like that, with her being a dominatrix per
A
se.
dominatrix.
Like,
Yep.
I didn't
Persona.
I
Yeah.
had no clue what any of that was during that point in time in my life. But and seeing her, as a black woman, I was just like, okay, this is a black woman, but at the same time she's doing this thing that I don't exactly understand. And then her name is Shaniqua, which is, somewhat of a problematic thing. But at the same time, they really didn't have that much of a choice back then. There wasn't, someone checking them back then and saying this stuff isn't okay. And that's across the board in terms of all people of color back then in the ruthless aggression era. It was hard, and it
But
was
it was
really bad.
definitely also a handful of people. Like it was I feel like it was to the point where, let's say if all them 5 people was to be like, hey, this is this, that, and the third, this doesn't equate to what we do or our history or whatever. Vince could have been like, all right, well, you're fired. And replace it with
Right.
other people who was gonna be like, okay, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. So it was hard. Like you had to keep your mouth shut and
Mhm.
roll with the punches.
Yep.
It's really sad when you think about stuff like that. And then it also goes back to the idea of people, like, even working behind the scenes. I'm more than sure they were just taken from, what they thought blackness was, as opposed to, thinking or looking collectively at us as if we're not a monolith. And there was a lot of issues with that. Like, even with Charmel, when she was the queen with Booker, with King Booker at the time, you had I can't stand it when this goes viral at the most random of times, but they'll show this clip of Kurt Angle saying all these ugly things to her that I'm not sure that he would ever say to a
Right.
white woman, but he was saying all these ugly things to her and talking about all the things he would do to her. And my thing is, this is somebody's wife, number one,
Right.
and you're saying this to Booker T. And I understand you're being a heel and you were trying to, like, get in Booker T's head and say this stuff, but at what point, who told you that this was okay to say about this woman, any woman, but more specifically a black woman, like that? Like, and it goes viral at the most random times, and it's just the most disturbing thing when you look at it and think about it.
It
That
really is.
even in her regalness, she was still, subjected to a level
Demean,
of
yeah.
disrespect and demeanment.
Mhm.
But I also
So,
Mhm.
feel like it's also during that time. Like I feel like a lot of these other wrestlers too, the white ones too, they were it. Well, it's probably like walking on eggshells back there. If there was something that wasn't right, with creative. And at the time, like, there were really no other bigger promotions during Ruthless Aggression, because at that time WCW was acquired. There really was no TNA or Impact like that at that time. So it's like, where
Right.
you gonna go? You're not gonna go back to the indie scene where you're making like nickels and pennies compared to what you're making now. And even that clip of Mr. McMahon wearing a do-rag and
Right.
or walking around and saying
Didn't
"What's
you
up, my
say
nigga"
it?
to
He
John
said the
Cena,
N-word. Yeah, he did.
and everybody was like, nobody said anything. Like, John Cena looked like, but nobody said anything, and I'm just like,
So embarrassing.
it's
Come on now.
embarrassing. It's disrespectful. It's disgusting, because you still have these black people who tune into your show every week. You still have these black dollars who are putting money in your pocket and into your company. You still have these black wrestlers who will fight in tooth and nail just to be seen. And this is how you say or do. You try to walk like a thug, or what you think a thug is, and you try to do all of that, and that's not who we are. Do
No.
the research. That is not who we are.
And that's exactly why there has to be more black people in general in the wrestling business, because wrestling is built on racial stereotypes. Like,
Yeah.
it literally, like, we had Yokozuna wasn't even fucking Japanese.
He
Like,
wasn't.
as soon as Kofi Kingston had a fucking generic ass character and wasn't even
Jamaican accent.
right. It's like, that's why there needs to be more black people in the spaces, in the writing room, in all of these, because like you said, there's a lot of, I was very disillusioned thinking about like black wrestling fans, but just knowing that there are so many in the community that are passionate wrestling fans, and it's like it does everyone a disservice. It does wrestling a disservice having these like racist story, even like just the treatment, because now it's not so overt, and it's just like it's clear like certain things are just like not okay. And if you just know, like you said, those 5 people, like you just know now, like this would not have, like, this is not okay, and someone
This is not gonna fly now. Like,
Definitely
I know we're
not.
talking about Black history, but I will always give it up to Dean Ambrose, John Moxley, for standing his ground when it came down to certain things that Vince wanted him to do, and he was just like, "I'm not doing that." Especially when it came around Roman Reigns or Joe revealing that his cancer came back, and Vince wanted him to do something really demeaning and disgusting and heartbreaking. And he was just like, "I'm not saying that. I'm not doing that. Like, this is one of my best friends. He's
Right.
back. He has a real life disease that can probably take him out this world. And
Right.
you want me to sit here and say these degrading things about him after he's gone? I'm not doing that." Like, it was hard for him to even turn on Seth that night.
Right.
He did it anyway, just to keep, just to appease the masses. So I will always give my hat, tip my hat to Dean Ambrose. I know I want him back so bad, but I love everything that he stood for.
It takes a lot to stand up for what you believe in at the backstage at WWE. Like, it really does. And that's why, like, once I, like, with Sasha and Naomi, like, once I got over just as a fan, just like missing them on TV, and it was like, it took a lot for them
Yeah.
to put championships on the table and walk the fuck out and stand up for what they believed in and still be adamant on it, and also with grace, because they never once went on these podcasts like most people that get released and talk shit and bash.
Yeah,
And
they'll start talking.
right, and they walked away, they dignified and respectfully, and even to this day, like, Naomi has gotten her buttons pressed a few times, and the way she's handled it has been amazing. And then as 2 black women who were like, no, we're not gonna stand up for this and know their worth. Like, look what Sasha Banks is doing this weekend. So just that whole situation has become like so inspiring to me, because I'm just like, you know what, it's okay if they never come back. Like, it's like, they needed to do that.
I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
it's okay if they never come back now, from a fan perspective. From a human being and a black
I'm
woman.
trying to talk myself into it.
No,
Okay?
I'm saying, but from a fan's perspective, no, it's not okay if they don't come back. From being a black woman who has to stand her rights and stand on her ground, and no, absolutely, it is okay if they never come back. But
It is.
come back, so please.
Yeah, the way I feel about it, in terms of Mercedes and Trinity, because It's just the way that I think about them is the fact that a long time ago, like say 3 years ago, when I wasn't as exposed to other forms of wrestling outside of WWE, it would have broken my heart and I would have been
Mhm.
super depressed about it. I would have been real sad. But seeing as now I've grown to appreciate and love wrestling more and more and, appreciate it in all of its facets outside of WWE, I can appreciate them knowing their worth and leaving. Because sometimes it's like I tell people in my life all the time. It's like Nina Simone said herself, you have to learn to get up from the table when love is no longer being served.
Mm.
And if that's honestly what was happening in that situation, if they weren't being valued enough and if they weren't being treated correctly, or if their ideas weren't being, taken into account, then you have to really sit with yourself and consider if this is what you truly want for your life, what else is there for you? And I'm so happy to see these women, thriving, whether it be quietly or loudly, in what it is that they're doing. Watching Mercedes, even with the clip she released yesterday, where
Mm.
she's supposed to be talking about her journey to Japan, has me choked up and emotional in a sense, because it's just like, how passionate this woman is about wrestling. And I've said multiple times that she is the greatest women's wrestler of all time, bar none, period, point blank. I'll fight about it another day. But it's
Don't
just,
fight Stephanie, fight your mammy. Thanks.
thank you. She's the GOAT to me. And just seeing her, in this new space where a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think she would succeed in, we get to see her actually step out there and try. And I'm so
Hmm.
happy that she is doing that and that she is doing it on a large platform. Like, she's been that girl for a long time, and it's time for her to prove that. And with whatever it is that Trinity has going on, whether she's modeling or even if she does come back or whether she doesn't come back, she'll be fine. She'll be okay.
Mhm.
And it's not the end all be all, just because, you may have been at the big top circus, but the big top circus isn't where you end.
Well,
There's
not
other stuff you
the
can do.
circus. Like
What do you say?
there's so many other circuses at this point where it's like,
Right.
no, like WWE does not have to be your end all be all. Now, does it help to put that on your resume as a professional
Absolutely.
wrestler? 100%, and your bank
Of
account.
course.
But at the same time, like knowing your worth, going to Japan and making an impact.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited for everything Trinity got going on.
And I'm excited for Mercedes because she has a big match coming up this weekend. And I'm just like, I need to, I don't, I'm gonna have to take a nap all days because to be up at 2 a.m. or whatever. Oh no, it's in the States.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's in
Oh
San
yeah, we
Jose.
It's in
good.
the
It's
States.
at the
I
same
could, I
time
could
as
be okay.
Elimination Chamber. So God help us.
Oh, child. That's amazing.
Two
But yeah, I'm
screens.
absolutely proud of all the Black women out doing whatever they need to do to find out who they are, get back to them mentally, physically, spiritually. Um, and when I say that, I think about Alicia Fox because her journey
Mm.
within WWE has not been the most perfect one. When she joined Team Bella, she would get trolled. I mean,
Mhm.
she got trolled regardless. Anyway, but she would get trolled even more. And then I feel like they just continue to make a fool out of her character. Like everybody loved her as the Survivor Series captain. She wore the hat and she would like throw herself on the floor and have tantrums and stuff like that. But they would use that and forget how great of a wrestler she is.
Right. That
And
part.
it's just like that. So that's all you see. That is all. Like it's cool when a Black woman has an attitude or gets so passionate about something or even gets upset and expresses to you how they're upset. But then when they're calmed down and actually talk to you and you have regular conversations, you're already labeled as that angry Black girl.
Right.
And Alicia Fox is
And
labeled as that crazy Black girl.
yeah, and that wasn't fair. It was very hurtful because, like, it's even to the point now where if you bring up Alicia Fox in a conversation and you mention the fact that she was the first Black and only Divas champion, which was
Mm-hmm.
also another miscarriage of justice on the part of Trinity. It's just, and other Black women as well. It's just like, it's like if you bring up Alicia Fox now, they almost look at you like you're crazy for even bringing her up
Mhm.
and her wrestling ability, because so much of her character work was strong in the sense that she was playing this unhinged character, but it's just like, it's not fair to the idea that if you bring her up in her wrestling ability, they'll be like, huh? No, don't harm me. Like, she really was a good wrestler.
She was a good sports entertainer, if that makes sense. Like, she's
Yeah.
very good at being a WWE superstar. Like, she, when it was time for her to do certain characters, she did it. She was a good wrestler. She can give anyone a sort of decent match. Like, I think the crazy persona like really worked for her. It just sucked that she didn't have like the time and like the attention I was put on it. But like, she was able to pull a lot of things off, and she was able to be signed for a very long time.
A very long time, yeah.
Was on TV consistently at one point. Not to mention being on Total Diva. So like, it sucks that we have to be the ones to give Alicia Fox her flowers and WWE isn't, like where we have to do that. And, I know she was also going through a lot of personal things, but I think she's a great example of like being that helping hand for so many years, but because, you're a Black woman or you don't fit the mold or you fit it to the stereotype that you gave me in this character, like Krista mentioned, and there's still no reward at the end. So I was happy when she like started making her return and they gave her like the 24/7 championship, and I think that was maybe their way of doing that,
or apologizing, or
Yeah, and then she even helped to get other talent over as well. I'll never forget when she was on 205 Live, and she was, linked to Cedric Alexander, and then she was also linked to Noam Dar. Like, it's just like, she really did, what she really was the foundation for a lot of people's careers, who are just starting off in that area of 205 Live.
And like,
but yeah,
like a lot of people can't do that. Like a lot of people, like, you don't trust a lot of people to be able to go to another brand and like make somebody. And like the fact that they were able to trust Alicia Fox to do that says a lot. But at the same time, it's like, why we never hear about any of that stuff.
It's better to be unseen so that you don't have to give recognition in their eyes.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like in speaking about the Divas title, the idea that she was the only Black woman to win and it took so long for Naomi to finally get one, it just really irritated me. Like, as a fan and just seeing how good Naomi was once she sort of, once her and Cameron both, Ariane, became a full-on tag team, and then started to show their abilities, I was so happy they were getting to do that, because it's just, I would always look at them and wonder, like, can they fight? And when they did start fighting, I was happy about it. But of course, there was the whole time issue with the women, all the women across the board. And then when Naomi and Cameron split up, unfortunately, Naomi seemed to, get the best of it, of the situation. But then it was like she was also put with the Usos, of course, because that's Jimmy and that's her husband. They were put together and she was managing them for a little bit. And then when Team Bad came along, it's like she turned heel and that was the catalyst for Team Bad happening. But I hate that she sort of had to turn heel and not really be a form of herself. When it came to that and sort of demanding, respect when it came to the Team Bella thing and all of that. She was like, no, you're going to respect me. And yeah, all of her outfits were cool and everything. But at the same time, why does she have to be angry and bitter in order to get people to pay attention to her in this way? Like, why does it have to be that way?
It's crazy. It shouldn't have to been that way. Like, I actually spoke to Naomi or Trinity about that, about Team Bad. And she goes, she was at a time and in space in her life where she was really fed up. She was really upset. So those emotions and that rage and that anger that you saw bubbling from her character was also bubbling from a personal space, because she was fed up. Look at how long she's been there. And the Bella twins coming after her. And they're just still dominating, taking it. And it took for Stephanie to listen to Paige complain about the Bella twins when Naomi was already complaining for this evolution to happen. So now not only are you thinking I'm crying wolf or my name is Chicken Little and the sky's falling.
Right.
Now you have to go over what I say to somebody who looks like you to actually take me seriously.
And not to mention, you just put me with just the other Black girls. Don't get me wrong, I love Team Bad, but like it was also very reductive. Like, okay, well, they're all Black, put them all together.
Just for Sasha to come back and to be the star of that group. Which, I mean, like I said in our Charlotte episode, it would have made no sense for Sasha, Becky, and Charlotte to come up, be called up, and not be the stars. But at the same time, you still have to give the credit and show the respect to those who they were paired and partnered with. The only ones really getting that respect were the Bella twins. Not even Alicia Fox at that moment.
And not even Tamina.
And not even Tamina. So
on it.
Yeah, it was just a lot. And there were, a number of beneficiaries when you think about that, but it was really frustrating to see that happen for them. And then it's just, I was happy initially, finally, to see Naomi get her chance, when she finally did turn back face. Because Chris, I'm glad that you mentioned that part about her being actually frustrated. And how you spoke to her and she said, like, look, I really was mad because I didn't know, where I was going in this career. Anybody was taking me seriously or listening to me. I'm glad that you had that conversation with her and you actually added that in, because watching that as a viewer back then, it was frustrating for me to watch, to watch someone who was just so vibrant and so beautiful be so angry, but there's a purpose to it. And something that a lot of people, take for granted is the fact that when Black women are angry, it's usually because someone's made us angry, not because it's just a default
we're born
emotion.
that way.
Like,
we're not born
or because
angry.
we're born that way. No, like somebody has really made us angry. And so there's a purpose behind that anger. And it's to your point, Queen PR. It's just like, it should not have taken, even though Paige was in a beef with Nikki Bella at the time for the title, because they were fighting a lot over the past couple of months with that. It should not have just taken, her saying something for the revolution to actually take place. So I was happy to see Trinity actually finally win the SmackDown Women's title from Alexa Bliss. I think I kind of felt like maybe she should have been the first SmackDown Women's Champion outside of maybe a Becky. I'm not sure. I love Becky Lynch now. No shade, because I love me some Becky. Even though for a whole year I didn't like her because of the whole Bianca thing, but that was painful. But either way, in my heart of hearts, I still love her. But it's just like, I sort of felt like maybe Naomi could have benefited from being the first SmackDown Women's Champion, because she had been in the trenches for so long and because she reinvented her character and because SmackDown Live was pushing itself as the land of opportunity at that point. Like, who better than to do that than her? But here again, she had to wait in line for women who had came into WWE like way after her in order to get her opportunity. And it was just like, dang, like, when is it going to be her turn? But when it was finally her turn, I was so happy. I was thrilled.
I also think that if she would have got the opportunity of being the first, it probably would have been her only. Like, she lost
Krista.
it. Like, she beat Alexa. And then I think she lost it to Natty.
She did
at SummerSlam. Yeah, I was there for that one. She lost it to Natty. And then
that broke my heart.
The only reason why, no, I'm sorry, she didn't lose it to Natty that time. She won against Alexa. She got injured.
Yeah,
she got injured, so she had to give it up. So technically, she didn't lose the first one.
And then she won it back.
She won it back again in her hometown in WrestleMania. So you want to have that good feel-good story, and then she loses it to Natty at SummerSlam.
And then right when they had the Glow title too. I'm sorry.
Yes. And so I feel like if she would have won it that first time, just like Alicia Fox. Alicia Fox was the only Black woman to win a Divas champion, and she didn't win it again. I feel like if Trinity would have won that match the first time, it would have been her only time.
I kind of agree. Can I bring up another Black woman that I feel like should get a little bit more talk is Cameron or Ariane.
Yeah.
Because she was getting compared in the ring athletically to a Naomi. And it's like you already kind of setting her up because like no one is as athletic as Naomi. And it's like you're comparing the two of them. So then she's already has like the underhand, you know what I mean? And she has, to me, I thought was more of a stereotype kind of thing. So she kind of was never really given a chance. And then it was one of those things where you have a couple of botches and then that defines your entire wrestling career.
Right.
And she's very ambitious and she wanted to go down to NXT, which people do now, to kind of tune up. And because, you know, she was like, if I'm going to be a wrestler, if I'm going to be in WWE, I want to be the best wrestler I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like, and it could be the Total Divas narrative, but it seemed very frowned upon. And I just was like, yo, Cameron never really got a chance.
Never.
And if you
Not
like watch
really.
her now on like social media, like she's never stopped grinding. She's never stopped working. You know, she went from, you know, podcast, she's in movies, you know, and it's like, damn, I wish people recognize that more about her, you know, because like when you're in a tag team, and not to get into that tag team conversation of like who's the Marty Jannetty and who's the Shawn Michaels.
Oh, please don't, because we know Brian is watching. Please
like,
don't.
but there's always going to be one where you're going to assume is going to get going to get left behind, and Cameron was always kind of given that mark.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like, but she was more representation. You know. So I'm sorry. I just want to give Cameron her flowers real quick.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm glad you said that, because it's just like, it's like I said, when I first saw them together as a tag team, I thought they were really cool. And anytime there was like any moments where I saw them together, I thought it was amazing. And when they started fighting and they broke up, I was like, no. Like, if Cameron were allowed to have gotten better, like I could only, and if Trinity was still in the company, like I was one of those people who were silently hoping that if Ariane came back, like they would have gotten the Funkadactyls back together. Of course, it would have been a different name, but either way, they could have gone for the tag titles, and that would have been lit.
We only had a glimpse or a little bit of taste when she returned at Royal Rumble,
right?
And then Sonya Deville eliminated her, and then Naomi comes out, so it wasn't even
I didn't even give us together in ring time together.
Yeah,
like so disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, it was very disappointing. But in the end, like I am, to all of your points, it's just like I am really happy that, you know, even Trinity had her moment, you know, at WrestleMania. It just felt like it took so much of her hard work to finally build up to where we are now, where we do see, like Brian Waters is mentioning, in AEW in terms of character based stuff, because it would have been fun to watch with Vicky and Nyla. You have people like Nyla Rose, who is, I believe, Black and Native American, and also a trans woman, in terms of that form of representation. And then of course we have, we still have Mercedes in a different iteration, of course, them knowing their worth. And then we have Bianca Belair. And then we also have BFAB, even though of course, you know, it could be questionable as to what's going on with Hit Row at this point. You have BFAB, you know, and her improvements as a wrestler, even though it's really quiet. You have Mia Yim, you have Ava Rain, and you have Kiana James and Sol Ruka, who we just found out a few weeks ago are actually Black women. Like that blew my mind. And you're seeing the level of athleticism that's coming from these women. And also you have your Amari Miller, who is out right now with injury, but we do wish her the best. Like, and Lash Legend. You have all these women. You also have Jade Cargill in AEW, and Willow, and so many other women in the independents who are giving new levels of representation, even on WoW Superheroes. And it's beautiful that all of this is multifaceted even now. But it's like I said on my last show yesterday, the only thing that I wish is that all of this was happening when I was a child.
Me too.
Yo, same.
Like, well, I wish it was going on when I was a kid, though.
I don't know. Well, for us, I don't know how it would have worked, because we grew up in the Attitude Era. So Attitude Era, I don't know. Like, I feel like if these women were put into the Attitude Era and we was like going to rewind the clock, it would have been more of the same thing that they were doing to women.
Right.
Like bra and panty matches and, you know, things of that nature. So I'm glad that we have them now, but I do wish that it started a little bit sooner than what we have them, but not during the time where I was a kid, because Attitude Era was it.
Yeah, they would not have done it right, like fully. But
excuse me.
Yeah, but I do say this though, I praise God, you know, and other higher powers for the children now who are coming up and seeing these people.
Oh my goodness. Like yesterday we were at Monday Night Raw, and if you ever been to a live show, you know when they're on commercial break, they'll do these cameras.
Yeah.
And they did the rest in peace camera. And the amount of little kids who were rolling their eyes like the Undertaker, it was just like, it hit me. It's just like, yo, like these kids are here watching. They know who the Undertaker is. Like the one kid who made P and I cry was this little boy. He had been no more than 5, and he was a Jeff Hardy fan. Jeff Hardy music hit, and this little boy goes
He was like,
crazy.
he was shaking. He like couldn't control himself.
I really wish that we would have recorded that so we could have tagged WWE so he could have had a chance to meet Jeff Hardy, because the influence that these kids have
only
now
within the last 5 years. So it's like the fact that someone like Jeff Hardy still has that appeal on kids, because he didn't know who Jeff Hardy was just like amazing.
Yeah. So these kids are amazing. Then shout out to Mr. Perry and the wrestling club. Like what he's doing on social media and everything else. Like it's just simply amazing. Amazing. I wish I had a teacher like him when I was growing up to have impacted me in wrestling, because maybe my teacher would have got me into being a wrestler. Hell, I could have been fighting Bianca. No shades to you, sis. Just saying. I could have been, like we'd never know what would have happened. But yeah, the kids, like at this point, these kids are the next generation. They definitely gonna be taking over this wrestling world. And I definitely cannot wait to see it. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen with these kids when they grow up to be wrestlers. And I would love to hear their stories, and I would love to, to hear who they were influenced by, and which woman influenced them to get into a wrestling ring. Can't wait.
Yeah, I definitely can't wait either. Like even now, like with seeing the students, and have you seen their Black History reports they've been
Absolutely.
doing?
I read it every day, every time it comes out. Yes, I have.
My God, it's so beautiful. And then how they got to meet Big E and Cedric and Titus and Shelton. I was like, come through.
We're not gonna talk about them meeting Big E because P still has yet to do so. And that's
and my mom works at that school with Mr. Perry, and she helps him out and stuff. And she met him and got a picture with him. She didn't even know who she was taking a picture with. She was just like, oh my God, all the wrestlers are at the school. Blah, blah, blah. And she sends me this photo. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. But the kids, I'm so glad Big E posted the video too, because I'm like, but kids' faces, like the way it's like, it means
it's just so priceless. Yeah,
it really truly is. And like I was blessed to be in the room when Sasha Banks surprised them, and it was just such a beautiful, beautiful moment. Like, and just how wrestling like resonates with people and changes people's lives. And then you see Mr. Perry giving that to these kids. It's like, oh, so amazing.
It's amazing, and WWE needs to give him the Warrior Award or something, because. It's just like,
oh yes, if they give him the Warrior Award, I will weep.
Front row, we're gonna be front row.
Yes, I will so weep. I will weep and just cry. Like I will just need tissue throughout that whole situation, because he is just so sweet. He cares for these kids, and he goes above and beyond for these kids. Like he is saving their lives, and he's just an angel. Like he's just an
really,
angel.
Really is too.
I love him so much. He's so great. I was so happy when I had him on my show. I was just like, oh my God, yeah. He's just these children.
He's the real celebrity out of all of us. It's him.
100%.
Yes. So since wrestling has evolved in a sense when it comes to Black women in wrestling, and like I mentioned, all the women that we have seen sprinkled all throughout these various promotions, even in Impact and stuff, what would you say has been your favorite moment, your favorite Black girl magic moment in wrestling that's taken place in these past few years?
For me, I would have to say attending the very first Jobber Slam, and all of us doing the electric slide at the end of the night. Like
I saw those pictures. I wanted to be there so bad.
We all just like bust the electric slide, and we took this big group photo, which was originally supposed to be those wrestling girls and Jobbeteers, and then Tasha jumped in and Swole jumped in and everybody jumped in. So it was like a big family photo. And I love how after every match, Big Swole literally gives her flowers to a woman of color or she speaks her mind and uplifts everybody who's outside of who's watching, who comes to show. Like, I love everything that she does and what she stands for. It's good, and it's amazing to see the representation that we have on TV, but it's the moments that you don't get to see. It's the moments at those indie shows that you are a part of, that, you know, you just be like, yo, like, this is history in the making. It's like you had to be there to witness it, because if you're not there and somebody tells you, you just be like, well, I wasn't there. Like, I can't. It's that feeling. Like, you don't want to miss out on the, oh, I had to be there. Oh, I wish I was there. It's like you had to be there in that moment. So for Jobbers to come together and put together Jobber Slam, um, 2 years in a row now, working on a third one, to witness Janelle become co-owner of a wrestling promotion.
Ooh.
To be there at Black Wrestle Fest when they announced that you were going to be announcer. Yes, to that, to P and I, you know, having 2 successful anniversary parties in person, to what is it, Pretty Hills, putting together Black Wrestle Fest. It's all of those moments that I'm just like, yo, this is why I do it. Like, yes, I do it because I love watching WWE, and, you know, I try to watch AEW and all of the stuff, but it's those moments where you don't get to see, where I'm just like, that's the most impactful part for me.
I gotta agree with Krista. At one moment in particular, shout out to Battle Club Pro. I want to say it was Black Girl Magic Show or the Jobber Slam this year, but we met. These 2 Black girls came up to me, and Krista was just like, "Hi, oh my God, I don't know if you remember me, but we follow each other on Instagram, and I saw you post about the show, so I came and I brought my friend who was another Black girl." And
that was Jobber Slam, because I wasn't at Black Girl Magic.
Oh, okay, so yeah, Josh, like, I bought her. She's never been to a show. I told, like, you know, blah blah, and they had the most amazing time. Like, they loved it. They was like, "Oh my God, this is such a good vibe." And her friend, who had just came, just because, you know, my friend was coming, she had she was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And I run into the friend now at Battle Club Pro shows, where she's there before, like, I'm there. So it's like the fact that we're, like, able to convert other Black women and give them a community and give them, like, you know, because then she started bringing her friends, and it's like, wow, like, you know, those are the moments that, like Krista said, like, you don't see, you know, we don't tweet about, you know, we don't post on Instagram, but, like, that's really, like, the Black excellence, Black girl magic moments that it just is like, okay, yeah, we're doing the right thing.
Right. And even, like, when you said her friend, you know, my friend Tiana, I've known this girl since we were in the 4th grade. And then 4th grade was still Attitude Era heavy and, you know, wrestling heavy, whatever. And she would know, like, the males, like we did. But then when we asked her to be a photographer for us for Black Wrestle Fest, she was texting me like, "Yo, where you at? I've never been in a space like this before, to see Black people so wrapped up in wrestling. Like, this is amazing. It's literally like a mini wrestling convention." And then come to find out, she grew up with MJ Jenkins in the same projects.
Wow.
Yeah, that's so crazy.
Yes, and MJ shouted her out. Like, "Oh yeah, we used to play Double Dutch right there in front of the building."
Oh,
those moments, those cool moments.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't see that every day. Like, you don't know who you know. You don't know, you know, who, like I always say, you don't know who's a wrestling fan until you open your mouth.
Yes.
Right.
You wear a shirt. I came out the nail salon one day and some guy was like, "Oh my God, you got on a vintage. Is that a vintage Bella Twin shirt?" I'm like, "Yes."
Oh my God.
Mind you, I'm on the phone, so I'm over here rushing him off. I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, "Yes, I'm a wrestling podcast that follows wrestling girls." "Yeah, girls." So you know, but you don't know who's a wrestling fan to open your mouth, to wear a shirt, to, you know, to you're in these spaces. And it's just so amazing to see, like, people are constantly being, I don't want to say converted, but having it revealed to them, like, it's okay to look like us and still like this product.
Right. Like, those are beautiful answers. It's just so crazy to think about how Black WrestleFest was my first time ever in New York. And
Really?
Yeah, that was my first time ever in New York, period. Like, when I came for Black WrestleFest, when they announced it, shout out to Danielle, Like
Yes, that's the
I
same
knew I wanted to be a part of it because I was just getting into going to Comic Cons and doing fan tables for my own show. So I was just like, you know what? I think I want to go to New York. It's time, it needs to happen. So I went up there, got everything situated, and I went up there and I stayed in Brooklyn, and it was just really amazing to see everything. I had just because going to New York had always been a dream of mine since I was a kid. So I was just like, one day I'm gonna make it. And so I finally made it, and I
And
just
you rode the
never.
train.
Yeah, I rode the train. Actually, I rode the train my second time
Oh,
I was in New York, because that was for Black Girl Magic when I rode the train, and Janelle talked me through that experience, and it was fun. But
yeah, it's an experience.
the first time, I just took an Uber or a taxi or something, but it was a lot to experience, because when you live in Birmingham, Birmingham is a city, but it's still the South, and everything is relatively chill and calm. And if you're walking on the sidewalk, you're lucky to run into maybe two people at a time. In New York, you run into everybody.
Jesus.
So it was a beautiful experience. So, and then being welcomed by you guys, that felt amazing. And like that just felt really amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in New York and all these people really know me and actually want to get to know me and actually want to talk to me. This is insane.
Absolutely. Like that's how we
I
felt when we
couldn't
threw our
deal.
that's how I felt when we threw our 3rd year anniversary party. Cause I promise you, because of the pandemic and how wrestling Twitter brought us together, we
Yeah.
already thought that we met half of these people in person.
Exactly. Yes.
And then Ryan be like, no, that's the first time I met you. I'm like, yo, you're a liar. Like,
No way.
and then it's like,
You're
like,
a liar.
yeah, I said it just like, you're a liar. Don't. Mm-mm.
Oh,
So it's just like when you meet these people, it was just like, oh my God, like, are you really you? It was just like, oh my God, come here, bro. Come here, sis. Thank you for coming. Da, da, da. It's
Yeah.
family. So when you got to experience that from us, it's always going to be love. Your family at this point. Like, you are definitely family. Whenever you in New York, whenever you in Brooklyn, I can't really speak on when you in the Bronx, but that's another story. You know who to call.
I'm
No
not gonna get
shade.
into
No
that
shade,
part.
P. I'm just not. Unless it's an emergency, I'm not going up there.
well, you
But
come to my house.
well, yeah, I do come to your house. I do. But yeah, like whenever you are in town, you are always safe.
1000%.
You will always, even if you need this place to stay for a little bit, you will always have a place to stay with whomever, because we will all protect you. Just like when I go down to Maryland. Got Black Wrestling. I got Brian. I got Justin in Virginia. I got Britt in DC. I got my best friend Medina out there, who's not a part of the wrestling community, but will support every last bit of it. Every last bit of it. And I know if we come to Alabama, we got you. Like it's literally a community of love, family, protection, and that's it.
And I gotta quickly first of all. Anyway, because no, we're not no Southern hospitality, but I gotta shout out Collaborators though, because they really inspired us, because they already had a community. They had already been bringing Spanish and Black wrestling fans together for years and years. I think they celebrated their 10th year doing pay-per-view parties, and they've built such a community where you really feel like family. Like the first time you come, you've been to Legends, I'm sure, Steph. And
Yes, I have. It was so fun. I went there for Extreme Rules
oh
last
yeah.
Yeah.
But just the hospitality that they showed, like you need a table. Shout out to Mr. Black. Anytime I'm at Legends, I feel like VIP. And that's just the way they make you feel. And I will never stop giving them their flowers for that, because they were one of the first to really build this family. And then and then it just migrates to like the Battle Club Pro family. And then that just moves on to, Faye Jackson. And then just like, it's so many communities. And, now we're traveling to get together as a Black wrestling community. Shout out to like Black Wrestle Fest. Cause that's even, that's something that's like, bucket list dream, like there should be a Black wrestling convention, and people get sick of that but so many times, and then it's like a team to be like, let's do it. Like let's fucking do it, and we did it, and it was amazing, and we were able to all get together. Is that where I met you for the first time, right, Steph?
Yeah,
Was
it
that Black
was.
Us? And yeah, so I mean, we out here.
We outside or ringside.
Yes, praise the Lord, because being inside was hard. It really was hard. I'm an extrovert and I like to go places, so being inside was the hardest thing to do.
I think it was hard because we were forced to do so. If you choose to be inside against, like, for your free will, it's the most easiest thing ever.
Right.
It is. It is. You're right.
That is.
You're right. But yeah, like in terms of my Black girl magic moment, I think, all of y'all mentioned all these great moments that we did all experience collectively together. But I think mine, just to bring it back, I guess, to sort of programming in a way, I can't stop watching Mercedes versus Bianca. Like, ever since it happened, like it'll be random times where I'll just need a pick me up, to remember who I am in this space. And I'll watch that match back. Like, that match was my desktop wallpaper for months, and it's my desktop wallpaper at work now too. And it's just whenever I feel, kind of just down or whatever, I will watch that match back and just remember who I am. And it's just, and that's just, my thing. Like, I watch it for clear skin now, or sometimes I watch Bianca's entrance at last year's WrestleMania.
I was gonna say that.
Like, those two moments were fantastic for me.
I was like, oh my God, y'all don't understand y'all understand, but like, y'all white people don't understand how dope this is right now.
To be there in person, to experience it. How about that?
Oh God,
the in-person feeling. The in-person feeling to seeing Bianca come out with a marching band from a HBCU.
Yeah.
Okay, and for them to play her music as she went down, and for her to wear the signature colors and the bow, and then bring back a moment, and then going back to the WrestleMania before, like that was like the very first WrestleMania. That was the first WrestleMania after the pandemic where we were all together at Legends. That was our first time back at Legends, and for us to just witness that, I feel like you could have heard a pin drop.
Wow,
that match was on. P, am I lying?
No,
like you could have heard. Like, we was just like, and we didn't know, like, we knew we wanted Bianca to win, but we also wanted Sasha to win because she's never won at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
So we knew like it could go either way and we would be okay with it. But the tears that was on Bianca's face before that match started. And Sasha had to like literally slap her into reality about it because the crowd's reaction, and to be in front of a live crowd, like, I chills right now, literally chills right now talking about it. So it's definitely, yes, that's definitely a moment in Black girl magic history that we will never ever forget ever in life.
Yeah. And to also piggyback off of you guys and mention another great moment, it just has to be commentating with Faye Jackson at Black Girl Magic last year, and getting to commentate Trisha Dora versus Karen Bam Bam. Like, that was one of the coolest matches I had ever seen, and even to get to call it, like, that was insane enough as it was. Like, I was just like, this is amazing to see Karen Bam Bam be as amazing as she is, and then also give a level of representation for plus size women in wrestling, for Black plus size women, and being confident in her body. Like, it was just such a beautiful thing to witness, and witnessing Trish, for the first, well, not the first time, but witnessing Trish wrestle in that match and watching them both, tear it down, and commentating like that with Faye just meant the world, because Faye was the first woman I had ever commentated with ever. Like, I had only ever commentated with men, and no shade to them because they were amazing men. Shout out to Mark and Scott, the funeral director, Resner. But us together, me and Faye, meeting for the first time that day, and then just having chemistry like that and calling it, and then watching her moment where she came out of retirement to challenge Karen for next year. Well, for this year, Jesus, it was just amazing. It was just like, I can't believe this.
Wait, hold up. Faye
happened.
and Karen are fighting this year.
Yeah, Faye and
Yeah, she
Karen.
announced her comeback and it's gonna be against Karen.
Yeah, at Black Girl Magic 3.
You know what? I'm clearing off my schedule because I missed it last year. I'm not missing it this year.
Oh my gosh, it was so beautiful to be there. And then for Women's Wrestling Talk to also help sponsor it too. And then for Katrina to ring announce it. And that was her first time ever ring announcing. I was just
Oh
like, oh girl, I can't believe you did it.
wow!
Like Katrina and I, like she's like my sister at this point because we did everything together last year between her panels and our after shows together with NXT and Wow Superheroes, and like she is almost like my sister. She's my sister at this point. So watching her grow and then do the ring announcing, it was her first time. I was just like, oh my god, Katrina, you did so good. And she's so very, shy and reserved sometimes, but she really does have a powerful voice, and I'm just so happy to watch her grow and to even be a part of that. So there are just so many moments, and we can love on each other all night and talk about all the great moments that we've had in terms of Black women in wrestling. Even through our struggles, we still find ways to triumph. And I'm so glad that we were able to come together and have this conversation in this way. So thank you, ladies, so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and just sharing space with me. And you're also welcome anytime you want to come back, because I know y'all are busy. But anytime y'all want to come back, y'all are welcome. So please tell everyone where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
Okay. You want me to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, hold on, because I feel like I always interrupt you.
You do. Please get it out. Please.
Check out our Charlotte Flair series. Part 1 and 2 are out. Part 3 is coming, I want to say next week. Fan club tomorrow live with the crew on Twitch in memory of Camilla, aka Cammy. And Friday, Krista B sound off with Christina. Okay. Yeah, I think that's
Sure?
it.
You sure you got it done?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
That's how it be. I get it.
So you can find me, Miss Krista B, MS_KRISTAB_ on Instagram. You can follow me on Twitter, Miss Krista B. No, I'm sorry, Miss_Krista B, KRISTAB, no underscore. You can follow Queen PR. That's Queen 3_ PR on Instagram and Twitter. Make sure you follow us everywhere. Subscribe to our YouTube, our Patreon, our Twitch. Please make sure that you are watching the live streams that's happening this week. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and our discussion groups on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And that's it. That's where you can follow us at. And also coming up, we're in Mania season. We never know what can happen.
Woo, Jesus.
We never know what can happen in Mania season. So please stay tuned for all the updates. Please make sure you following us, happen with us. And on that note, it's your girl, Krista B.
Queen PR.
And of course, know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast everywhere you get your shows. And of course, watch the episodes on YouTube. Of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And also support Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And also go on our website where I have my Black History Month article on Janelle from the HR, because we're giving flowers to Black women in wrestling media. That article came out today, so please go to www.talkpod.com and read it, and also the other articles that were released today as well and yesterday, because we are celebrating in a major way. And also check me out on SmackDown and Rampage After Show with Drian Santana, our editor-in-chief, and on the Wow Superheroes After Show on Mondays with Katrina from In Cat We Trust and Emily May Heller. And check out my interview with Wow Superhero Coach Campanelli, that's also on Women's Wrestling Talks YouTube as well. Yeah, that's a lot. But either way, please check it out. And also check out my episode that I did with Black Wrestling yesterday on YouTube. And also you can listen to the audio now as well. So, of course, thank you for Brian Waters for watching the entire time. Thank you so much. And from your lips to God's ears about those premium live events, I hope so. Lord Jesus, that would be
Absolutely.
great.
We're gonna be there together at the same table.
Oh, yes, definitely, definitely, definitely. So, of course, this has been the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and Those Wrestling Girls with your girls, Stephanie, Krista B, and Queen PR. And until next time, bye, y'all.